Hello and welcome to the Jackcast, your Swansea City podcast. I'm your host, Steve Carroll, and we've got the band back together this week as Matt is joining me. Evening, Matt.
Evening. You okay?
We've had worse weeks, haven't we? I think that's fair to say. There's plenty to discuss on tonight's podcast. Obviously, we have made quite a least surprising decision, I would say, bringing offering a contract to Alan Sheehan, which he has signed, so he will be our manager next season. So there's that to discuss. That's the main thing, really. We've had 3 games since we last did a podcast, so we'll touch on them. We'll probably look ahead to the weekend's game, probably not in huge detail because there's not a huge amount on it, and it'll be a bit of a party atmosphere, I would assume. We'll look ahead to the summer, and we will. We might discuss a certain club's iconic club, their relegation. So let's start with Alan Sheehan then, Matt. Not a surprise, I think, that he's going to be the Swansea City manager going forward. What's your thoughts on this? Your initial thoughts, really, on the situation with him getting the job?
It was almost impossible for him to be offered the job in the end, wasn't it? I mean, the run of form he's been on is quite remarkable. You'd have probably said it on this podcast as well, but I've had the opinion since Luke Williams was shown the door that Sheehan would be the right person to keep us up. I know there were varying opinions about, taking the drastic switch there and then, but, you want to get someone in with fresh ideas and stuff like that. And we weren't in a position to entertain that. We didn't have a time or an opportunity to transition or anything like that into a sort of team that we could purr about in a year, 18 months time, because we were looking down the barrel of a relegation dogfight. So seeing Sheehan take the job on an interim basis, I thought would be a great safe pair of hands. He's already done it previously, of course. He's far surpassed anything I thought he would achieve. In fact, I don't think there's anyone from a Swansea persuasion who thought we'd have gone on the run that we went on. So I was as shocked as anyone to see the 5-game run is quite remarkable. But then look at that then from a employment point of view then, and the club are looking, well, how can we not offer him the job? The fans got increasingly louder as well in terms of they wanted him to get the job, and you just have to imagine for those who think they shouldn't have given it to him, and I do hear that, and I do understand that, and I'll be honest with you, I would have liked us to go a different direction at this stage, now that we're guaranteed another season in this division. Imagine a new manager comes in and goes through that transition period, and it takes a while. You just know it's going to be, they're going to be like with the pitchforks at the door, if we aren't in the top 6 by September, because you're just going to see people already clamouring for Sheehan. Fans are fickle, of course they'll be the same fans that are whinging if we are struggling, towards autumn time, winter time next season. But it became an impossible situation. So would I have appointed Sheehan? Probably not. I think I would have liked to see us go down another route, a fresh start, clear out the backroom staff, and go back to a sort of principled way of playing and appointing with that mould in mind. But it would have been very brave for them to go down another route after the run we've been on.
Yeah, I mean, I'm of the same view, really. I mean, I don't think this was an appointment I would have made, but it was just impossible, really, to go the other way, wasn't it? I mean, 23 points from the 12 games. Obviously, if we get a win on this weekend, he is averaging 2 points a game. It is a remarkable run that we've been on, particularly the 5 wins in a row. I mean, look, I'm not going to say that I've been hugely convinced by all of it. I mean, you look at the Derby game, it was poor to say the least, wasn't it? We did manage to get a winner, but I mean, that had 0-0 written all over it. I mean, you look at some of the other games, Plymouth, where we did play really well, but the opposition were horrendous. The Hull game, you'd probably say, I'm not saying we didn't deserve to win, but we only won because the ref gave us a very soft penalty. So I think, as when you're on a bit of a run, sometimes you do get those little bits of luck as well, don't you? And I think that that did happen a little bit for us as well, but you can't really take it away from him, can you? I mean, I think me and you both weren't hugely encouraged by Sheehan, but at the same time, you now look at this record, and as you say, the fact is, if Sheehan didn't get this job, as you've already touched on, somebody else comes in, is under huge pressure, and if they don't succeed, then they're probably going to get fired. You'd have thought that Richard Montague, as director of football, probably would be fired if he didn't sanction Sheehan getting the job as well. So it became a very difficult situation, really, didn't it? I think if we'd made an appointment a few games ago, then the clamour for Sheehan may have still been there to a point, but not probably at the level that it became. I think in the end, it became a bit too much. We were backed into a bit of a corner, really, weren't we? Where if we didn't give him the job, then we were on a bit of the pressure would have been huge, wouldn't it?
I suppose the question to you would be, and I know this is where I think the fan base is divided, because I think there are fans who want to see us win every week, and that's absolutely fine. Let's be honest, that is what everyone wants ultimately, is to see a team win every week. But there's other fans then who would take having a situation where they could see a bigger picture, or perhaps see something that you're building towards, and try and establish a groundwork for the future. I mean, something that the Swans have been famed for is having that framework where managers can come and go, and for a period of time we were getting managers being poached, successive managers being poached. You talk about Martinez, Souza, Rogers, all taken off us, but then you've got the new manager just fitting into the mold. Everything was in place, so we didn't have to do mass upheavals every year, 18 months. And what we've struggled with recently is this constant need to reinvent the squad. We've got a lot of deadwood there now, some coming towards the end of their contracts in the next year or so. We need to make sure that we don't keep chopping between certain styles and philosophies and trying to build a new squad between that. So I guess circling back around to my initial point is, where do you sit on the scale? Because for me, I would rather be in a position where I think, right, I know what we are about and what we do, because it is sometimes better to be lucky than be good, because Steve Cooper showed that. It's a lot of games we were uninspiring with him, and he got us to a playoff final ultimately, didn't he? But then you look at the fallout of that not being successful ultimately, and we paid the price for that for years. We couldn't afford to bring players in because the money was spent on all those loan players. So would you rather a philosophy-based approach, or would you think the results side of it is what's most important?
Yeah, I think that's what's interesting, isn't it? And as you say, there is a bit of a split, I think, within the fan base. And look, at the end of the day, everyone's going to be different, and I can completely understand why a lot of people would think that results are the be-all, end-all. And looking at it from the short-term point of view, I think there is the argument for the long-term as well, which would probably be certainly the way I would look at it, is that you do want to build a philosophy, as you say, and try and just keep things going. I think that's how we were successful initially, wasn't it, years ago with Roberto Martinez, and then trying to appoint similar types of managers, so you're not seeing a big overhaul of the squad all the time. And if we're honest, there hasn't been huge alignment here, has there, in recent years? I mean, I've written a piece for my website earlier on today, and I think I've cited it under Russell Martin. We did have alignment, I think, in Swansea, but the ownership weren't aligned. And you think of the people that Martin wanted to sign, and obviously wasn't really backed. And I think quite a few of them could have really been good players for us, and ones that we probably would have been able to sell at a profit. And then obviously when he left, coincided with Paul Watson coming in. a lot of really poor signings, no alignment at all in terms of what we wanted to do. Michael Duff, who was a poor appointment as well, that didn't work. Williams then came in, still with Watson, and again there just wasn't that huge alignment, I would say, and I think that seems to be the general feeling down here, if you know what I mean. That we need everybody on the same page, and I'm just not convinced that Sheehan is going to be on the same page from a long-term point of view. I think it's quite different having the job short-term and you're just focusing on results, whereas now it's far more about planning for the future, isn't it? Who do you want to sign and all this type of thing? Because, as a club, we're going to have to bring in players that we can try and sell on because, that from a financial point of view, we're at a deficit, aren't we? So that's going to be interesting as well. But I do understand those that do just look at the short term and don't look so much long term. But yeah, it's a difficult one, and time will tell. The fact is, ultimately, we all want the Swans to be successful, and if Sheehan does a good job, then we'll all be happy, won't we? But yeah, it will be interesting to see what happens. I mean, and you're looking at it from a point of view of we've got players out of contract or loan players as well. I mean, again, it's going to be quite a big rebuild, isn't it? I think Harry Darling is likely to go. I think we have to say that. Obviously, Lewis O'Brien, I think is unlikely to be here next year. I would assume that if Joe Allen, if he was going to retire, would have said something. So I think there'll be an offer for him possibly. I mean, Carl Norton may go. I think Christian Pedersen obviously is going to go. The goalkeeper McLaughlin, and then we've got Hannes Del Crar as well on loan. I think it's likely to go back. We're going to need players again, aren't we? And it does feel like quite a few signings. And if we're honest, there's quite a few here as well that we want to get off the books, won't we? So it's another big summer for us.
Yeah, this is it. We keep finding ourselves in this position, don't we, where we get to a summer and we think we need a big one this summer, and then we end up starting the next season, the first 2 or 3 games with, a sprinkling of youth players in there, not because we're feeling adventurous and have an incredible youth, but because we just have massive holes in our squad, and that's a massive problem that we've had for a number of years now. We need to fix. We need to make sure that, especially in times where we know there are going to be holes. I would personally like to see us move heaven and earth to keep Harry Darling at this club. I think bringing a player in to come close to the quality that he offers us, and not just as an individual, but the partnership he struck up with Ben Cabango as well is not to be underestimated. They know each other's game now. They can read each other, know when one's going to go and one's going to drop. It can be taught, it can be trained over time, but he's got a ready-made partnership there. I think on his day is one of the best in the division. So I'm looking at that and thinking, if we can keep him, then we should do all we can to do so. Yes, it might well be that he's already had his head turned elsewhere, and we'll see that play out over the coming months, I'm sure. But we need to make sure that we don't go into the new season short, because we end up running an uphill battle before a ball's been kicked, and I don't want another slow start. We need to make sure we come and approach this season, and we start playing from the first game in August, and we don't start thinking, oh, well, let's not judge this team until the window closes on the 3rd of September or whatever it is, because we're 4 or 5 games in then, and we're already trying to play catch up with the rest of the league. So a lot needs to change from the boardroom level down. And we've said this, Steve, every transfer window for the last 5 or 6 years. Eventually one of them is going to pay off, I'm sure.
Yeah, we have. I mean, like you say, we went to Middlesbrough on the opening day, and Azim Abdullah, for example, was on the wing. Now, it's not meant as a dig at him, although obviously he has now left and gone down to a lower division, but it's just not a winger. I mean, you can't be going into the seasons, can you, like half cooked. We need to make sure that we've, there's nothing wrong with not having everybody in at that point, but you've got to at least be able to put 11 players on the pitch who are in their correct positions, for example. I mean, it's just common basic stuff in it. So I think that has been the frustration. I am a bit more hopeful that we could be organised. I mean, I did say that at the time, Melker Waddell was not, well, I wouldn't say I criticised the signing. I think it was more that we needed players at that point as opposed to looking too far ahead. But Now, obviously, we have managed to stay up comfortably, as we know. Him coming in will be quite a big positive, I would say. So the fact that one signing is already done, that's obviously further ahead than where we usually are. So that's good. It'd be great now if we could crack on and try and get a couple done early on in the window. I mean, the ideal scenario, I would always say, would be to try and get everybody in around about the time of pre-season. If you've done the bulk of your business, then you're in a really strong position because you can, everyone can bed in then do in those few weeks. You can work on your style of play and everything like that, and you should be in a stronger position for it rather than constantly having to play catch up. So that's what I'm hoping for, really. But I mean, we are going to need quite a few new faces, aren't we? I mean, on the face of it, I think, Josh Key and Josh Tymon have played a lot of minutes again. We probably need a backup for at least one of them. Hopefully one maybe that can play two positions. As you say, if Darlin was to go, that's a big problem. I think we would, even if he stays, we definitely need at least one centre-back.
Delquart kind of covered both positions there, didn't he? Covered
he
the left back and centre back, which was a blessing, and thankfully we didn't come under any great scrutiny with injuries at the back, because had we done so, we'd have been in a lot more difficult position.
Yes, we would. Look, that goes without saying, doesn't it? I mean, we're looking at other positions. If O'Brien goes, we need a replacement. We have lacked a bit of creativity this year, so another number 10 would suit us. I think we need someone on the left, really. I would say. I mean, Ronaldo's, to be fair to him, has picked up, I would say. I'm still not entirely convinced, but he's played so many minutes that I think he's been at risk of a bit of burnout, to be fair. So needs some sort of an understudy, and I think up front we're still probably a striker short. And I mean, it looks on the face of it, from my point of view, that there's a couple of players that Sheehan doesn't fancy. I mean, Florian Bianchini has to be one. I mean, he's barely played, has he?
A waste of money.
I know he could be going on loan. That wouldn't shock me. Can't see someone buying him. We haven't seen much of Ollie Cooper either, have we, since he came back from injury? So,
no.
As there always is in these situations, there's a few players that will benefit from a change of manager. Maybe Vipotnik has been one, but then there's others that seem to suffer, and Bianchini especially, I would say, and Cooper could be too, couldn't they?
Yeah, it's one thing I am kind of keeping a positive mindset about here with the appointment of Sheehan, is that he doesn't seem to be too hung up on systems and shapes of playing and stuff. But what he does do is he demands his players, work and throw themselves in front of shots and close down, and also move through the lines quicker, as we've seen, and that has probably played into our hands a little bit with Grimes going and O'Brien coming in, who's a lot more of a progressive player, and his relationship with Franco has been great to see. With that, I like the idea of maybe Waddell coming into that team, because the players since Sheehan's taken over seem to have been a lot more expressive in the way they play. Players like Eom as well, they seem to. He has had a difficult first season in British football. I think he's the first to admit that. It's a big adjustment for him, and it hasn't all gone his way. But he's starting to show shoots of promise, and more than that, he's starting to show confidence in his own ability again. The wing backs, or I say wing backs, Tymon and Key, whatever Luke Williams was playing them at, was really strangling their game and killing them both. Now we see the confidence flooding back to them. So players playing with confidence and freedom is, as football fans, is always great to see, isn't it? And I'd be interested to see how that translates from Alan Sheehan, the interim manager, to Alan Sheehan, the permanent manager. It's easy to say that he'll just carry on as is, but if that was the case, then every interim manager would have had unbridled success. But it's not been the case, is it?
No, it's not. In general, interim caretaker managers, when they get the job, there's far more, I would say, that it seems to go, or either that it does go well, but that doesn't mean it's going to go badly down here. But we will soon see. And I mean, to be fair, as you say, we spoke about a lot of this now already. But as you said, a lot of those players have been putting a shift in for him, haven't they? I mean, we were at a few of those games. We went to QPR, for example, didn't we? We'll touch on that in a bit, but. You certainly can't say that the players haven't played like they've wanted him to have the job. They all seem to be enjoying it. I think, so they're as much to, give credit to for him getting the job as much as what he has done, aren't they?
Oh, I can't fault it. It's been so much more enjoyable to watch us play. It's not all been, glitz and glamour and blowing teams off the park. Don't get me wrong, but there's never been. I think there's been a game in there where you thought our players haven't put a shift in, even if the quality's been lacking on some of them. And I think in the Derby home is a particular one of that. I think, there was very little quality in that game, but you always felt like the players were going to put in the hard yards, and I think that's been a big standpoint. He's showed us up for one. I don't know how much of this is taking us to Alan Sheehan's been brilliant or Luke Williams was massively underachieving towards his last few weeks and months in charge here, because it was it's been like a different team, hasn't it? The way the players are charging into blocking shots, making sure they don't commit the same silly mistakes every time. It got a bit farcical towards the end of Williams's reign. But now, you're going to see, that effort, that grit, and the way that Sheehan sets us up is in a kind of way to say, well, we'll push, we'll give it everything we can to make sure the opposition can't play. But then when we have the ball, we are seeing those players express themselves. I mean, Josh Tymon, I think it was against Sunderland, and maybe even won a game or two after as well. He's getting the ball in positions where he's seemingly boxed in and then dropping his shoulder and dancing between two attackers. And you're thinking, that's massively risky move, but also shows that the player himself is allowed to express himself and allowed to play with that sort of confidence and not being boxed into, no, if situation A occurs, this is your result. This is what you have to do every time. Sometimes players can be strangled, can't they, from overcoached and stuff like that, and being forced to play so strictly to a system. It has been a bit refreshing to see players, look up and make a decision for themselves. So it's not all doom and gloom. I don't think. I think it's an opportunity for Sheehan to buck the trend of what we've seen previously with interim managers getting the permanent role. It would be a trend to be bucked because it does tend to fail more often than it succeeds, and that's just a fact, really. But ultimately, it's up to those players and Sheehan now to prove that doesn't have to be the case. And if they can carry on with the same vigour and determination that they've approached the last few months in the Championship, then there's nothing to say that next season can't be as enjoyable as the last couple of weeks have been.
Yeah, and let's hope that's the case, because as much as we've said we would appoint someone else, and I don't mind being wrong on this if it means we're doing well, because that's what is by far the most important thing anyway, isn't it? But as ever, time will tell. We will see what happens, won't we? I mean, let's have a chat about the last few games, really. I mean, we did a podcast, myself and Andy, I think it was after the Sunderland game. So, I mean, the Hull game, I remember, again, it was like a very committed performance. I think we did well, probably not so much in the final third where we didn't create a huge amount, but I felt again like it was a performance where everyone was giving their all. We were the better side, but we did have to rely on them. We had a bit of a fortuitous decision from a referee to get a penalty, which Popotnik scored, and that's what won us the game, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah, look, it wasn't a handball, was it? Let's be honest. But that said, how many times have we had dodgy decisions go like that against us? And quite often in those games, they can happen at critical times as well. We've scored that penalty, which has put us in shape and given us something that we can defend, and that's something that we can work with, which is what we did. We're professional, I think, is probably the best way to approach that. Yes, perhaps we needed the fortuitous decision to break the deadlock, but after that, then you're just hoping that Sheehan's style of play then will see us through, and it did, and I think that's the case for many games that Sheehan set us up for. Sunderland away, I know you said you've already talked about that, but again, it was a case of getting a goal, seizing an opportunity from an uncleared free kick, and then from that moment on, it was about making sure that all 11 players on the pitch wanted to defend, not just had the obligation to defend, but those players were putting their body in the way, chasing down loose balls and making sure that Sunderland didn't have a moment to breathe. And those are the sorts of characteristics and traits that you need in a football team. And those are the things that, if you got buy-in from your players, can be invaluable for a manager. You can see the difference when players stop putting in the hard yards for you. And it's been the death knell for so many managers, where once the players stop chasing it down and they stop, playing and head drops if they lose possession, it can kill you as a club. It can kill you as a footballer, and it will certainly kill you as a manager. So at the moment, the players are doing all the hard work. They're making sure that they don't allow the opposition to get back in the game, and they look like they're thoroughly enjoying this spell. And so long may that continue.
Yeah, exactly. You can't play brilliantly every week, but I think when you don't, you certainly got to see those committed type performances, haven't you? And we did see that, I would say, against Hull. I think, like I say, we just needed to be a bit better really in the final third, but we definitely deserved to win against a side that offered nothing. I think we'll be honest about that. Then we go to QPR. I mean, the start was quite dull, really, I would say, wasn't it? Then we got managed to get an own goal, in the first half, and then there was a period that wasn't there at the start of the second half where we got the second goal, and we were playing some really nice stuff. There were a few good moves, weren't there? And I think that was particularly encouraging, really. And I mean, when QPR got their goal back, that was their first shot of the game, and it was after about 70 minutes. So that was a really positive performance, I would say, and a well-deserved win.
What did you think about this then? Because I felt like that opening 15 minutes of the second half was probably as good as I'd seen us this season, in terms of we were not only were we putting together brilliant passes as a player, I thought we were a joy. We could have probably scored 3 in the opening 15, 20 minutes of the second half. We really had a stranglehold on that game. What would that, to you, if you could encapsulate that and say that is the way Sheehan wants to play? And I'm not saying that is the case, but taking that period at the start of the second half, would that be making you think, well, actually, Sheehan is the right man to take us forward?
I think if we were replicating that most weeks, then I don't think there would be many complaints, would there? So it was really good. Like I said, the second goal was really good. There was a couple of other really nice moves in there, one-touch stuff. It was really enjoyable to watch, and it was just a shame that we didn't capitalise on it and get more goals. But it's, you just don't know how it's going to work next season. Things could be different. We're talking about still a relatively small sample size, aren't we, under Sheehan? I think the only way to find out what will happen longer term is to give him the job, which is what we've done, isn't it? So,
what did you think about the job being for 3 years?
I don't like that, if I'm honest. I think a lot of these 3-year contracts are a bit, should we say, over generous. I sort of understand it when you're poaching a manager, because if to make a manager take it, I think you have to do it. But in this instance, I don't think that we did. I think 2 years probably would have been fine. But I mean, the truth is, sometimes with these things as well, anyway, the clauses and the payoffs might only be about a year anyway. So if that's the case, then although it's a 3-year contract, it's not a 3-year payoff if you were to sack him tomorrow type of thing. Obviously, we don't know what the ins and outs are, but it's unlikely, isn't it, that they're ever like that. I mean, and do you remember when Alan Pardew had that 7-8-year contract or whatever it was? I don't know if that was a that may not have been an 8-year payoff, if you know what I mean. But the fact is, I think he left anyway before the end of it, didn't need to go somewhere else, so it didn't matter. But yes, it does seem a little bit generous, because we are still talking about a first-time manager. I don't think anybody else was going to offer him the job. I think a 2-year contract would have been fine. I mean, but it does seem like pretty much everyone that gets the job these days is on a 3-year contract. I think the days of stuff like Brendan Rodgers on a 12-month rolling contract are long gone, aren't they? It just seems to be the way that managers get 3 years, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, we struck gold with Rodgers without, well, I say without realizing it. I'd like to think that people in the boardroom realized it when we brought him in, but his reputation was on the floor when we brought him in, wasn't it? Really, I mean, he'd failed at Reading, he'd failed at Watford, and he came in here and really had an opportunity to start something afresh. And I guess from our point of view, we weren't, obviously, the days before we got the riches of the Premier League, so we were still very much playing in a shoestring budget, perhaps punching above our weight in that regard. And so a 12-month rolling contract to us probably was something that we wanted not to awfully tie ourselves into. Now we seem to be throwing 3-year contracts around like confetti, and in that regard, we have to really hope that we strike gold again with the manager, because one thing we can ill afford as a club is to keep sacking managers every year. It's so disruptive when we firefight year on year, and we talk about circling the drain, and we'll come on to our friends 40 miles of east when it comes to it. But you do get a sense sometimes that if you have a couple of iffy seasons where you've had to get out of it at the last, then eventually, unless you make a big change, you are going to fall foul of it and eventually get sucked in. So it's important to us as a club that we make sure we've made the right decision, and we don't end up coming in this podcast in a few months' time talking about who the next manager is going to be.
Yeah, absolutely. But and time will tell on that, won't it? So the most recent game obviously was our defeat at Millwall. We lost 1-0 at the Den on Saturday. The first half was quite poor, probably the worst we played in a few weeks. I think that's a bold opinion, I would have thought. But to be fair, in the second half, I thought we were better. There were some good chances. We probably should have had something, I think. So I'm not overly concerned. I mean, one or two people probably thought, we weren't out of the playoff race, but I think we were. Let's be realistic about it. Even if results did go a certain way, a few teams lost and stuff, we were never going to get in there. We're a few games short of that. But I think frustrating, I would say, from the first half. But at least I did see that reaction, and it was poor finishing, really, from my point of view, as to why we didn't really get that equaliser. I mean, Cullen had that great chance that where the defender got in the way from a couple of yards out. He then played a really good pass for Eon, who had a chance saved. I mean, we had enough there to get something, didn't we?
Yeah, we did, and I'll be honest with you. I think me watching it back was less in reflection of the game, knowing what the result was, as opposed to watching it at the time, because my interest had been piqued by what was going on in our in our Cardiff Cousins fixture, which had taken my interest at that point. I know we'll come to it later on in the podcast, but seeing it back, it did feel like, on another day, we'd have got something out of that game, and we deserved to get something out of that game. But I think it just pays testament to the fact that in this league, you can ill afford to have a very slow start, which we did have. It wasn't a great first half. We didn't really do a great deal, but I think you need to make sure you're at the races. And to be fair, it's not been, I wouldn't say it's been a regular occurrence that we've kind of fallen short of our standards like we did at Millwall. I think perhaps that one was, whether it was one step too far or whatever, but we whatever was said at halftime clearly got a reaction. We started creating things which I wasn't seeing in the first half. So it would be interesting had that gone on, and we had gone on to win the game, how we would have approached things going forward now. Because really speaking, there was a potential, Steve. I know we'd won 5 on the bounce, but with Millwall, had we won that, and every chance now with Oxford being safe, when we play them on the weekend, we could have won that one and potentially gone into the new season on a 7-game winning streak, which would have been unbelievable, really, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would. I mean, I look back through our time following the club. There's been a few, of 4 and 5s and stuff. But I mean, to the best of my knowledge, I don't know if we've ever had a run like that, other than obviously there was the club record of 9 in a row and the John Hollins. A lot of them were 1-0 from what I remember. Not the most inspiring. I think that but they did beat the record of 8. I'm not sure when the 8 came, and I'm not sure if it was maybe in the Toshak era or something like that. But I mean, to have been in with a chance of going into the new season on a run like that would have been unbelievable, really. But it is what it is. Given that it was a nothing game, it's not really the end of the world. But it is, it's always a bit disappointing to lose games, isn't it? Even if there isn't a lot to play for. However, I mean, something else did cheer us up on the weekend, didn't it? Because yes, a certain club up the road, iconic club, some would say, Sleeping Giant, others would say, have been handed their medicine, haven't they? They will be playing in the 3rd tier next season for the first time in 22 years. I mean, our hearts bleed, don't they?
Oh, I mean, I'm just thinking back to when we were at QPR, and even that game felt like a dead rubber of a game, and we thoroughly enjoyed the weekend, and obviously the game as well went in our favour. We played well. You're looking at that and thinking, how can the focus be anywhere other than there? But there was always that thing in the back of the mind where we knew that there was a chance that Cardiff could go down this year. Things had not been going well for them, of course, with Bulut first, and then Omariza, and obviously then eventually Aaron Ramsey. We spoke on the way up, didn't we, about the potential for this being absolutely glorious for a Swans fans' perspective, because I mean, there's not a lot you can say if Omariza takes him down. He was just he's just an assistant come manager who just wasn't good enough. But for a boyhood hero in Aaron Ramsey to be the one to take him down, we were licking our lips at the prospect of that being the case, as it's transpired as well. But I think that became the story. Once it was clear that we weren't realistically going to be in the shot of the playoffs, I think, we'd be lying if we said a lot of Swans fans' attentions hadn't somewhat been distracted by the idea that they are in serious trouble here. And could we finally be seeing Cardiff just taking one risk too many and falling foul of that and falling out of the league? And yeah, that's exactly what happened, and in quite glorious fashion too.
Yeah, I think obviously you always want your rivals to suffer, really, don't you? But I mean, I think from our point of view as well, I think we need a bit of a break from the derby. I mean, I know this year the fixture didn't go our way, did it? I think we have to be, honest about that. We had a really bad loss up there, and at home, I think we were disappointed really with the draw, weren't we? So it's the first time in a very long time that they've got the better of us over the 2 games. But I mean, I think obviously 6 seasons in the same division, which is the longest run there's ever been between the 2 clubs. I think it was almost getting to the point where the edge wasn't quite what it was, if you know what I mean. I think when you have that break of a period and then it comes back, it is certainly a bit edgier. You're all more up for it. Whereas I think that maybe was being diluted slightly, if that makes sense. So I think this little break will do some good. I mean, I'm sure it will return, in the not too distant future. I can't see it being several years or anything like that. But it's
maybe.
Look, of course it could be, but I mean, I just think that it won't be a stupid distance. I mean, I remember when we were growing up, we had 10 years without it, essentially, didn't we? I mean, that felt like an eternity really at the time. I mean, I don't I don't see it being as long as that. I mean, you think it could be, do you?
No, I'm just thinking, listen, there's real question marks about what's going to happen with them now. They obviously need to decide who's going to be their manager. They need to see what's going to happen with some of their better players. Anyone you'd fancy cherry picking from that lot? I've always thought Ruben Colwell was in the wrong team, really, because he seems to be an immensely talented player on his day, and he's in a team full of cloggers. So I thought he'd be better off playing in a team that wants to play a bit of football.
Yeah, there is that. I mean, I think the thing is with Colwell, though, I mean, several managers have been there now and haven't really fancied them, should we say. So that would leave question marks for me. I think for him, he needs to play regularly now in League One and show what he's made of, I would say. Because, he's not young anymore either. I mean, I suppose from our point of view, Salic would be a good signing. He's done quite well for them, isn't he, up front? But, I mean, do I particularly want many of their players? I would say no. I mean, I don't think they've got much of a side. They seem to think that they have, or should I say, a certain former head of sport seems to think, that they've been so close all season, but they're not close now. They've achieved. So
it's brilliant. I mean, look, this seems like maybe a Cardiff fest, but social media over the last weeks, I cannot. If you've been living under a rock, you may not have noticed, but it's been absolutely beautiful and brutal in equal measure, hasn't it? There hasn't been a line that has not been said to the Cardiff fans. I mean, look, it's exactly what we'd have got the other way round, and this is what's brilliant about football, isn't it? You almost relish your rivals' misgivings and failures as much as you enjoy your successes, because you always want to be getting one up with them. You always want to be rubbing their noses in it, whether it's because you've done something great or because they've done something shit. Sometimes they one and both the same thing. They are as enjoyable as one another because you actually do enjoy their misery, and we've been thoroughly enjoying their misery.
Well, we have, yeah, but I think the thing with Cardiff will always be that the idea is above their station, so that always makes it even more enjoyable when they get these reality checks that happen often, because, like I said, they've got ideas above their station. So, there's quotes from earlier in the season where Ramsey said he's gone back there to take him to the Prem. Well, it'll be quite a long journey that will now, my friend. Like I said, a certain Mr. Adam Donato and his unbelievable delusion, which is, he's the king as far as that is concerned, isn't he? And it seems to feed down to a lot of other people. I mean,
what I don't get is the unspoken irony in the fact that one's fans, but Cardiff fans as well, will pick up on England's and England media's arrogance leading into a tournament. It's coming home, yada yada, all this, every tournament, and we almost share an opinion and share a shared belief with Cardiff here, in that English media set them up for a fall every tournament because they overhype, overplay, put the expectation on. Everyone thinks it's going to happen this time round, and inevitably they fall at a hurdle, either close to the end or a disastrous fall earlier on. But we all agree that that's what happens. So they don't detect the irony in that every year Cardiff do exactly the same thing for their own chances.
Yeah, exactly. I think they've never twigged on that, because you can see that I think they get as annoyed as us when the England hype comes round at tournament times, but are completely unable to see that they are the exact same thing. But look, the fact is, I think if Cardiff ever managed to get a dose of reality and realise the situations that they're in and the type of club that they are, they could possibly be more successful rather than the talking of world domination when they're struggling. But hopefully that will never change. I don't think it will, to be honest. I don't think they're capable of taking a step back, are they? They're far more likely to just talk about how unfair it is and this shouldn't be happening and stuff like that. But just let them get on.
I don't necessarily think it's a given that they return straight away.
I'm not convinced at all. But I mean, the fact is, at this stage, you do just never know, do you? It's always hard to say when you don't know who's going to be there. But I think the real pain will come for them is stuff like, I think the away days probably won't be too bad. I mean, there's different grounds and stuff like that, a bit of a change, but the killer will be those home games, particularly those Tuesday ones. When you're playing something like Stevenage or Mansfield on a Tuesday, and they'll just be there expecting to win. It'll be really flat. That's where it's really going to hurt, if you know what I mean. And and I sympathise hugely. Not.
I don't. I genuinely
don't. Look, neither do I either.
The way I see it is, you don't get, these are things that you'll see up and down the country, and maybe not in other nations, maybe not express it as much, but in this country, we have rivalries that take over, don't they? We have those kind of rivals that really do take over, and the Swansea Cardiff is always one of those ones that appears near the top of people's lists and stuff like that. Of course, only remaining bubble and stuff, but as you said, it's been a fixture that has dominated the calendar for the last, would you say it was 6 years? When you look at that and you see when the fixture lists come out and we've got Cardiff 7 games in or something like that, it's already ruined the first 6 games of the season, because it's almost taken the complete, taking your eye off them. We have a slow start and it's like, oh, okay, we'll save ourselves a Cardiff. I was like, okay, but there's 4 games to go before that. It always is a big distraction, isn't it? And don't get me wrong, when it first came round and we first had the derbies again, it was actually something to really look forward to in a otherwise perhaps dour season. Whereas in the end, it became an unwelcome distraction from maybe what we were looking at, and we weren't perhaps in a great place ourselves to thrive in those environments either, as we saw this season. So, I love the derby. You absolutely adore the derby games, and I'm ready for a year off. I'm ready for a couple of years off if they can't get their asses back up here, and long may their misery continue.
Yeah, I do. Like I say, I do think we need that bit of a break, because it does seem to dominate the focus, doesn't it? And then, when you're always thinking games ahead with it and stuff like that, and sometimes you need to think more about the overall picture of where we're at, rather than having that like distraction. Yeah. So I certainly think that will be a positive from it. And as someone that follows Wales, I think if they're playing on international weekends and it stops a few of their idiots from going, then that can be quite a big...
How are they going to do this, by the way? I guess they're going to have to work with the fixture list to make sure they don't actually play home games on international weekends.
Well, because... I mean, you've got to remember, though, haven't you, that we don't necessarily play at home on a Saturday, do? So it's hard to say what exactly will happen. But, I mean, if Caldwell stays and 1 or 2 others stay, then they're in the Wales squad. Obviously, they'll be able to call the games off, won't they? But, yeah, I mean, it's another issue for them. I mean, looking ahead to the games that are coming up. I mean, they've got, I think Wales have Belgium at home in October on Sunday. So, I mean, Cardiff could just play a Friday then, for example, couldn't they, if they were at home? And then, in the November one, there's a home game on a Tuesday, so that one isn't really going to interfere with them, if you know what I mean. So, I mean, they may well request to have away games at that time, though. That's a possibility, isn't it?
It's an incredibly unique situation. I dare say it's probably the only place in the world where a country plays its home games at a stadium that is in the 3rd tier of its national league. I don't think it happens very often. I think realistically, where you're playing your country's national games is in probably one of the more illustrious stadiums, probably in the top flight. And so all your star players are playing for them, and therefore you are taking the breaks in the international breaks. So I don't know that this situation occurs very regularly, but yeah, Cardiff will likely, or at least possibly, be playing during the same weeks as Wales, which is just another brilliant thing to remind people of.
Yeah, I just hope they get Blackpool away on a Tuesday in December, so they can't even have that either.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah, but so looking ahead, then we've got Oxford at home, haven't we, on the weekend? I mean, they'll be delighted, won't they? Because they managed to secure their safety last week. They're bringing a huge following, so we're told. I mean, they were given more tickets than most were, so they've actually not played at the stadium before. The last time we played Oxford in a league game was it was actually the last night game at the Vetch, where Chris O'Leary got the winner. And interestingly, 20 years ago today, we played the last game at the Vetch, didn't we, in the league? I don't know where the hell the time's gone.
Wow.
But that's certainly that feels mad, doesn't it, to say that? But yeah, it should be a party atmosphere, really. I think there'll be a lot of gloating from our lot, won't they? They'll be in good spirits as well, having survived. Oxford at the start of the season undoubtedly would have been. Go on.
I was going to say, not just survived, Steve, but they effectively relegated Cardiff. So I think they'll be potentially, obviously, they survived at the expense of Cardiff, so they'll be delighted. We're delighted that 40-yard screamer flew into the roof of the net a week or two ago that put Cardiff in a position of pretty much no return. Then they needed results to go their way. It was no longer in their hands, and so I look at that and think there might be a mutual respect in the stadium there, where everyone is kind of getting on and laughing at Cardiff's misery.
Yeah, I certainly think that could be the case, and the weather looks brilliant. Perfect day for football in the sun, stress-free football. Pub afterwards. I mean, what's not to like, really, isn't it?
Oh, it's a glorious day. I'll be heading from the game down to Swansea Bay to watch the music on a beach. There appears to be perfect weather for that as well. So to be able to go into the weekend's fixture without the stress that maybe 8 weeks ago, I was really worried that this was going to be a telling fixture in our future. But no, the form has been such that we've stayed well away and ended up actually looking at the other end of the table, seeing what we could do up the top half, which is a massive shock to us all. But actually, where we've come at it now, as you say, Steve, it's a completely stress-free afternoon. The beers should be flowing for all who attend, and everyone can have a nice, relaxed afternoon, a smile, a giggle, and just enjoy, hopefully, what will turn out to be a decent game of football.
Yeah, absolutely, and obviously the last game for 3 months, so the last major chance to see some people, I would think, before their wives probably try and book them up for the summer. So yeah, everything what's not to like on the weekend. We often seem to be at home, don't we, on the final day? We're quite lucky with that. So let's hope for a good occasion again. But thank you very much for joining us. But I think the only way to end, really, is to quote the great man Lee Trundle, and to say, I don't know what's happened down the road. Something bad has happened, but you're in Swansea. We're having a great time. So thank you very much for joining us, and bye for now.